Forge, Chapter 15. We woke to the sound of crashing drums, the brigade's drummer boys pounding out the revel 5 paces from where we lay. Get up! Rise! Rise! Shouted the officers far and near. We were all dusted with frost, like loaves of bread sprinkled with flour. One by one, we sat up and struggled to our feet. Greenlaw and Faulkner stumbled off in search of privy holes. Peter Brown rolled into the middle of the damp canvas, curled on his side, and coughed without cease. Eben sat rubbing his hands together. I'm a brick of ice. Your mouth isn't frozen shut, Sylvanus said. I walked briskly to and fro, slapping my hands against my arms to warm my blood. Eben said nothing to me, but he followed my example. After more officer shouts and drum calls, we marched to the large, muddy field we'd crossed the night before. A swarm now with thousands of ill-dressed soldiers, even more drummer boys, a few fife players, and and officers trying to turn the maelstrom into something orderly. This is called the Grand Parade, explained Sergeant Woodruff. 'Twas neither grand nor a parade, but I kept the notion to myself. The sergeant looked down our line. Where's Brown? He didn't get up, called Faulkner. The sergeant sighed and pointed to the Janak twins. Go back. If he's that poorly, take him to the hospital tent. What if he's dead? Asked one. He's not permitted to be dead, snapped the sergeant. The rest of you, shut your gaps and stand proper. I've never stood roll in such a large and bedraggled company. Ancient blankets were wrapped around the soldiers of a lucky few. Many more stood in torn shirts with neither waistcoat nor greatcoat to keep out the cold. The sight of the soldiers standing barefooted in the snow gave me right shock. My own toes, warm and dry, and my British boots curled in horror. I blew on my stiff fingers and stuck them in my armpits to warm them up. How many days could a fellow go shoeless in the snow before the cold killed his toes and the doctors had to cut them off? Sergeant Woodruff took our company's report. 14 present, 2 present but unable to appear at roll, and 4 sick, to a lieutenant. He returned holding a cloth bag close to his chest. I studied it hard. A small side of bacon might fit in a bag such as that. A collection of biscuits would too, or bread, or cheese, eggs. No, not eggs. They'd be long broken, or served to the highest-ranking officers. But it might contain oats, or dried beans or peas, perhaps ginger cake. My belly rumbled. After collecting the regiment's reports, an officer in a blue coat delivered a long paper to the officer of the day, who stood in front of us all. He glanced at it, then shouted out orders from General Washington. Any soldier who fired his musket without permission would suffer 20 lashes on his back immediately. Major General Sullivan was going to build a bridge over the river. Each hut would soon be issued 1 pail for carrying water from the creek. Finally, he nodded to the drummer standing to his left. The boy beat his sticks crisply as a woman wearing a muddy skirt and a man's greatcoat and oversized shoes was led to the front. The way she held her head high reminded me of Isabel. The officer shouted that this was a washerwoman from Virginia, was being drummed out of the camp for stealing food. No one in the camp was allowed to help the woman, and if she was seen in the camp again, she'd be arrested. She started shouting so loud we could not hear the fellow's last words. The washerwoman was led away, screeching like a scalded cat, by 2 tall fellows carrying muskets. But it's winter time, Eben protested as we walked off the field. "'Tain't right. Where will she go?" "Hush, boy," scolded his uncle. "The general has to keep discipline. It's none of our concerns. Besides," he hefted the cloth bag, "it's time for grub."